That was exciting.
Okay.
Hey guys.
Oh, how you doing?
Pretty
well. What time is it at your place?
10 o'clock, 10:08 p.m.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's 7 in the morning at ours.
Yeah.
It looks like it's midnight at
Yeah,
your
it
place,
does look
Stefan.
right. Yeah, Stefan looks like it's in the dark.
Yeah, it's actually still kind of
get the
dark
bottle.
outside.
Go get the bottle. We have to have the bottle here.
The bottle?
Yeah. Well, it's 10 o'clock. We've had dinner.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we got to get the bottle. You'll understand when we get the bottle and stuff. It is this weekend is our Thanksgiving, and I don't know how to explain it.
That's right. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, thank you. We ate turkey. Okay, so now you have to show them the bottle.
Let's see. I can't actually see
You
us,
can't see us?
so I have no idea.
Oh, you have no idea.
Nope, that's not.
Oh God, we look terrible.
There we go.
Okay.
So
can you? Okay. So does that?
Oh.
Now we didn't make this, but it does say yes for copper spice. It is a Cabernet Sauvignon, and this is the only one we'll buy because the other ones are other elements. What? So it's
yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't typically like a lot of cesium in my wine, but I'll make an exception.
It is a wine from Washington. Yes. Thanksgiving was Thursday, but we both woke up and said, nah. And we actually made the turkey today. So, but
how have you been doing the last weeks, days,
years, months,
decades?
Ansel's playing with screens, and I can't.
That's better. Now now I fixed our video camera.
Oh, okay. So now we're not elongated.
It was in SD, which is it doesn't like.
I think I'm doing better than Ansel is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, to give you the rough idea, the city that we live in, we hit level purple today. And you're like, what's a level purple? We don't really know either. We're on lockdown plus. You can't leave the house. We're on quarantine now.
Yeah.
You can't leave between 10 p.m. and 5 p.m. or 5 a.m. As of today, all of our bars shut down. Salons have never opened. We actually haven't had a haircut in a year. We're cutting each other's hair. That's why it looks like shit. So, just so you know, we actually haven't seen anybody in a year other than people at the grocery store or online. So actually, I really am really tired of you.
Yeah.
Really tired of you. Really tired of you. Like, really tired. So if we seem a little crazy, it's because, California's, we're screwed. In the United States, we're hitting 110,000 cases a day. We've had 265,000 people die. Los Angeles is going on a lockdown, but they decided to wait till Monday. Why lock down now? Just wait till Monday. So every restaurant closed today.
Yep.
Every restaurant
in our area.
In our area. So in the state of California, there's 55 counties?
Something like that.
And I think 3 of them are okay, but nobody lives there.
Well, that does lower case counts.
Yeah.
For those of you who have been to California and know the area, like I'm pretty sure Modoc County is okay because there's nothing there but rocks.
Yeah, so there's
not a lot of virus transmission going on
between 6 rocks.
I think the total population is like 200.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
in an area roughly the size of the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Looks like it seems like the county I want to live in.
Yeah. So basically, it's still November. Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, in the last 6, 7, 8 months, bars, restaurants, hair salons, gyms, movie theaters, nothing has ever opened here.
That's so crazy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we've kept a little bit, we check out other countries and we talk to our other people that we work with in Holland, and okay, this week they could go get haircuts. Now they can't. Yeah,
it's going to be another 6 months probably.
we could go to the dentist. We were
Yeah.
able to in August. We could get our teeth cleaned, but that was an ordeal. It was the dentist can only have 2 people in the room. I didn't even recognize him. He had so much protective gear on. So yeah. Whereas
Well, the
you guys-
Netherlands on a
Yes.
per capita basis is actually, I think, ahead of the U.S. still as far as infection rate or
Yeah, but
infection per
We're
capita.
trying really
we're
hard.
doing really hard. Yeah. Basically, and thank God he's leaving. Our dumb, I didn't say dumb shit president, told everybody, go do Thanksgiving, go see everybody. And the CDC, all the medical people are like, stay home. What was it? 3 million people got on a flight and traveled around the United States these last 4 days because they wanted to have Thanksgiving with their relatives. Yes, Thanksgiving, it's not quite as big as Christmas, but it's a big holiday here. And it just, people wouldn't stay home. So the catchphrase lately was quarantine. Oh, yeah. Now I just totally forgot it. It's quarantine for things. Oh, a family with Thanksgiving is better than Christmas in the ice.
Yeah, quarantine Thanksgiving is better than Christmas in the ICU.
Yeah,
That's
or in the hospital. Yeah, yeah. So.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That sounds crazy.
It's-
Have
what
more
was the-
cesium.
Yes.
have more cesium.
Yeah, I need some. I think the tweet that we saw is you can, in the United States, you can force a woman who gets pregnant to have her baby, but you can't force anybody to wear a mask.
Oh
Yeah.
well. But
Does that look like a lot of
besides from that, what's
well, there's really no besides from that.
No, there is. No. There is. We revamped DoxyPress so it understands C++20, and concepts are really hard. How's that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You have to. Yeah, because every identifier could be. Wow. Yeah, that's gonna be fun.
Oh no!
Well, no. Oh no!
No! It works.
It works.
It's in.
It's in.
It works. But there's one form of concept requirement that we can't parse.
Now we're using Clang for this.
Yep.
So we do have an AST.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're hooking in the Clang. Okay,
Yeah.
yes. I was gonna say,
Otherwise-
how are you doing this otherwise? Yeah.
Yeah. There's 2 ways DoxyPress works for documentation. One is to use Lex as a parser and a tokenizer, or Clang. And we looked at Lex for about 3 milliseconds and said, no way. So yeah, we are using Clang. But just in case you've never used the Clang documentation, what Clang documentation? No, there isn't any. There is sort of this documentation that is just a dump of, here are the methods, but it is trial and error.
It's basically, what do we think a method that gave us what we need to know would be called?
Google
Let's
that.
search for
Let's
that
search for
name
that.
in the documentation, and maybe it exists.
And it really is trial and error. So for those people using Doxygen, I'm sorry, he'll never get there because you can't do this in Alexa. So unless he steals our code, he'll never get 20. But there's a lot of form of concepts, and there's about 2 of them that nobody knows.
Mhm. And as I was going to say, there's
Yes,
one
you got it.
there's one particular form of a concept. There's one location you can put a requires clause that we don't support because Clang doesn't support it either. And it was so obscure. We were trying to figure this out, and it was like, we're not even sure if this is correct. We were reading the standard and trying to find out what the deal was. And so I emailed Richard Smith and said, hey, is this code accurate? And he said, yep, and I think that's a Clang bug, and sent me the link to the new ticket.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think Clang 11 is going to support putting a requires clause after the template parameter list in a Lambda expression. It currently does not.
After the oh.
Yeah. I know it's early for you. It's good. Yes.
Because for consistency, in every other place, you can put a requires clause directly after a template parameter list. So they allow it for Lambda expressions, even though it looks weird, because the natural place for the requires clause is before the body of the Lambda, and that's also supported. And that one works in Clang.
There was another one we ran into that I'm not remembering because there's the concept, there's the requires, there's about 4 different forms of a requires. We wrote some test cases that did all of these that nobody will ever use.
Yeah.
Nobody will use it. Eric Niebler posted some tweet of saying, why doesn't Doxygen do this? And we said, because they can't, but we'll put it in DoxyPress, and released it a week later. Yeah. Don't know if anybody, well, actually we do know people are using it.
Yeah.
So
that's one thing.
Hey, he turned the lights on. Or he's adjusting the lights. So we did that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What else are we doing? Just
a lot of work on Copper Spice improvements that come through. We got team members working on things, and we just recently significantly improved startup time on Windows.
Yeah,
which is good.
Cool.
Yeah, Jan did it.
All the other platforms were already fast. Windows was being
No,
a dog.
it was only Windows with MSVC.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Windows with MinGW was fine. It was just Windows. It's trying to load too many fonts, and I don't know if you know, but the company, it's not exactly public information, but the company that Jan works for in Rosmalen, they are looking at moving to Copper Spice. And it's still sort of like they're looking. And so to do that, to make that move, they apparently needed to write a test suite, because you really don't want to make a move from Qt 4.6 to Copper Spice bleeding edge, and they were moving all of their platforms.
Oh,
they were
yeah,
upgrading.
yeah. They were on ancient versions
of Debian,
of all their all their platforms. Like, let's do that. And by the way, maybe we should have some unit tests, so we know when we move, it's actually working.
Yeah,
because we don't even know if our current stuff is working. So it would be good to know if our current build works, so that we could make sure we don't break anything.
So he's been working
I've never seen a project that has this issue before. This is really unusual.
So he's been spending.
I've seen a few.
Yeah.
Apparently, Odin is having difficulty with sarcasm today.
Yes.
Oh, that. 7
It's
in
early
the morning. I couldn't even find a bakery that was open.
Yeah.
So they so it's fascinating for us because Jan is actually it's not really paid. The company's encouraging him to, well, if we're going to do this, spend time looking at Copper Spice. So the boss is kind of like, he doesn't get in trouble for spending part of his day looking at Copper Spice. And so he's trying to clean up their code base, because in case we get the blessing for him to move, or he just cleans up his code base and everybody wins. And then he goes, oh crap, this is too slow. So that's how we got the improvement on MSVC, because he did a pull request. And then so about every third day, he says, this doesn't work in Qt. And we're like, no. And it is giving him ammunition for telling the boss it doesn't work. But then he tears his hair out for about 3 hours of, does anybody know this doesn't really work in Qt and is completely undefined behavior. And it's kind of fun. It's like watching a 3-year-old. That's what it is. Because it's like, I found undefined behavior in Qt. And we're like, yes. And what's your point? And so
This is kind of like the thing that Linus observed a while back when somebody came up with a user space exploit that would hang the kernel. This was like 5 or 10 years ago, and somebody said, somebody posted to the mailing list and said, here's this problem. Here's a tested exploit, and how do we fix this? And Linus said, well, A, we're definitely going to fix it, and B, thanks for pointing out that Linux is actually a pretty darn good system, because if you posted on a Microsoft forum, I found a program that crashes Windows, they would say, oh, that comes in the box for free.
Yeah, yesterday, we're in the middle of this 48-hour hackathon thing, and so having breakfast in the live chat yesterday, my 5-year-old came in. Daddy, it's too early. I'm grumpy. You're not allowed to talk to people in your computer anymore.
Can I try that with you?
Yeah,
then I'd have to talk to you. No, talk to other people.
Barbara, Ansel,
Yes.
Did Odin tell you what we're doing here?
No, we don't know
Not
anything.
really.
We don't know anything.
Odin, would you mind explain? I'm currently have an axe on the boiling plate. I have to, but so yeah, I'm fine.
Well, that's
So
questionable.
Yeah.
I know you too well.
More than that. All right. So
We did not prepare slides. We did get dressed.
You did not prepare slides?
No.
Oh, that's totally fine. So
Yeah.
we 9 months ago we had a chat with someone from our city, not city council, but someone that's working for the city. And he asked us whether we could do an online hackathon in order to have something to do for Bochum citizens, just since everybody's staying at home.
Uh-huh.
And so we did that 9 months ago, and we thought, well, we could do that once again. So this event is called 8iN48, and actually we're right now live streaming. I hope Odin told you.
No.
No? Okay.
That's okay.
So yeah. so
you're famous right now in
Oh,
Bochum. So we got 800,000 over 800,000 visits.
Well, I guess it's not 800,000 right now.
if you had beer at 10 a.m. at your conference, I figured a glass of wine at 10 o'clock. It was fine.
Oh, actually, that's so absolutely fine that I didn't even
Didn't even notice.
that I didn't even notice. Yeah, but we organized this hackathon once again, and this whole scenery is set up so that we are having a 48-hour live stream from Friday afternoon to Sunday late noon, when there are the finals where the participants present their solutions they built so far.
Is this
So if we look like we don't have enough sleep, then
It's actually because we didn't have enough sleep.
Is this particular I mean, is everybody working in one computer language, one piece of hardware, or is it just whatever your forte is?
Go ahead, Ollie.
It's actually even more open than that. It basically, some local institutions described their problem, and you can try and solve it however you want. Like,
Okay.
you could come up with some social awareness campaign or something as part of the hackathon. If it sounds like it'd work, it doesn't have to have programming or hardware or anything. Yeah. So one of the challenge presenting entities is the local fire department, which is interesting this time around. So they're like, well, we don't really have enough information. We have like paper maps of where the fire hydrants are, and can you guys help us? I feel sorry for the other two, because everybody wants to do stuff for the fire department because everybody loves the fire department, obviously. Which has been very interesting, because it's been they're very professional. Like we went and filmed there. Sort of, hey, here's the fire department. They're like, yeah, you want us to make you fire, and you want you want to see us like drive out of the garage with the fire engine siren blazing. Sure, you can film that. We'll do 3 takes.
Well, do you know that we have a fire department problem?
Oh, no, I don't.
Where we actually live is in a small town, as some of you have been here. It's about 2,000 people. What's the equivalent of 911 in Europe? It's not 9. It's one.
I think it's 999.
999 or something like that.
112.
Well, yeah.
112. Okay.
Yes.
Various numbers.
I think it's 999 in UK
In
or something.
So
yeah, well, they drive on the wrong side of the road. So
yeah. So where we actually reside, there is no emergency 911 service. If we actually call 911 because there's a fire, our phone call gets routed to a city next door. And there is a dispatch person who has to figure out that this call is coming from the wrong city. And they have a paper map with an overlay, and they have to know to dispatch that street isn't in our city, it's in the other city. And if you get scared, which we sort of were at one point, you can call the phone company, sort of, and they will do a test 911. And I'm like, well, that's great. The test will work. What if I'm dying? Does it work then? And they're like, well, we hope so.
I'm a software developer. I know how iffy tests work.
I know. So it's with ambulance and fires. So we actually
So do you have a normal phone number of your local dispatch or something?
Yeah, we actually do, but it's in a phone book somewhere. But I don't know where it is.
Yeah.
So we have a fire extinguisher, and we try not to die.
Yeah.
And if we do, you want to go outside and die, so that they can find you. It's not that bad, but the overlay works in a way that the street names and numbers aren't the same.
Yeah. Somehow it ended up that there are no duplicated addresses between these two towns. So they know it's not in my map. It has to be over there.
Yes. So or they just drive around until they find the smoke.
I can't think of any way this can go wrong.
Yes, I can.
That's even more foobar situation than it is at our place.
Yeah.
Yes. So, but the thing I wanted to come to is that I do think that so first of all, so we're doing this hackathon. There are 3 entities giving challenges out to the participants. Those participants had the chance to choose one of those and work on them for the last almost 40 hours. Mm-hmm. And so we're doing this 48-hour live stream, and we're having a lot of program running besides the hackathon for everyone to watch. So if they're getting stuck in their work or something, they can just drop into the live stream and check out what we're doing all that time. We have had live music. We have had some more or less comedy talk yesterday in the evening. We what did we have? We had some live gaming event. We had some sales workshops that you could follow online. All of that stuff.
In 1.5 hours, there's an interview with Tabea about 25 Square. It's a nice smart city project, and we will have a talk in the studio. So stay tuned.
Stars? I thought we were like the show.
Actually, you're our special guest this morning.
We're the farthest away. Yes.
Excuse me?
Farthest away, yeah.
Farthest away award.
California. You definitely won that.
Well, with the magic of Zoom, we had one of the guys presenting from the moon. We're pitching from the moon. Yeah, well, it was the moon. I mean, it was this moon base in the background, so you must have been there, right?
No, I don't think we're there.
But
yes.
Thinking about so Bochum is sort of kind of like a German startup city, and so first of all, I don't want to explain where you're coming from and what you're doing and how you got there, but I would think that everyone that's listening would love to hear the story of how you got to
what the hell we do
in Silicon Valley. What?
Yay! Good morning.
Good morning.
What steps did you take on your, or what pathway did you take to actually end up having a company that you like in Silicon Valley? How did it all start, and who are you?
Who are we? Who are we? So
who are you, and where'd you get those awesome T-shirts?
Yes. We put on our good T-shirts. So people are actually listening right now, or just so the people logging on are the ones that can see us. Is that what this is, or other people?
Actually, basically everyone from the hackathon could possibly join right now.
If
so
they're awake.
There are a lot of people that could see. So if you want to go to the website 8iN48.de/live.
Do you want here, this one? We got too many computers. Here, try this keyboard.
We have too many computers.
We have 3 computers on this desk, and the problem is we have 4 mice.
How does that work?
We don't know.
Is one of them alive?
I don't know. We really do. Okay, hang on. There are 4. No, wait, this mice is this one. Oh God, they used to be labeled.
Good morning, Lenka.
Okay, it's okay. We're in mouse. No, we have an extra mouse somewhere.
No idea.
They've been reproducing. So yes.
Who are you?
Well, I have no idea. No, we do know.
So first of all, I'm Ansel.
Oh, that's right. You're Ansel. I'm Barbara. Yes. Hello. We are the co-founders of the Copper Spice Project, the Doxy Press Project, CS LibGuarded, CS Paint, CS String. I'm missing one. CS Signal. We have a lot of libraries. Our main library.
Before I don't want to interrupt you later on, but just to explain once more, it's like not all of the people that are watching are actually C++ programmers. So there are a lot of less technical people and some non-technical people, like sales people that are also involved in this hackathon. So maybe you could, yeah, like Mario, yeah. So maybe you could explain what those terms are.
Sure. Do you want to know the terms, or do you want to know why we did this?
Why you did it is a good idea.
Why we did this? We were up in Oregon in 2012, and it was Cinco de Mayo. And we decided we needed a new project. And we were walking around Eugene, Oregon for about 8 hours drinking beer. And we were users of a C++ GUI library called Qt. And we were having problems. Or I was actually a user, you weren't. And you were watching me struggle. And we spent the day walking around, so no driving. We were walking around drinking, going, from a marketing perspective, from a user perspective, what's wrong with this library? Why doesn't it work? And how would you fix it? If you had a magic crystal ball, if you could just fix it, what would you do? And somewhere after drinking beer for a few hours, we're like, why don't we try? It's a problem.
How hard could this be?
How hard could it be?
Let's give it a shot.
And it was really an idea of nobody's doing this. So there was a problem out there nobody was addressing, because this particular library, it's not that it's bad or it's wrong. It's just, it's not what we wanted. So how could we make it better? And why not us?
So our vision was, we're both C++ programmers. And there was no clear first-class GUI library for writing applications in C++. There were a lot of libraries you could use, but they didn't really fit the way C++ programmers like to write code. And so we said, well, let's just do it. Let's just take it, tear it apart, and put our stamp on it and see how we can change it so that it really fits with how we like to write code as modern C++ developers.
And somewhere after that trip, we talked about it nonstop. And we went to lunch and dinner, and we were hanging out for about a week up in Eugene. And it was just a constant conversation of what would it look like? Where would we start? And I have to say, if you were looking at this on paper from a marketing perspective, we were very naive. And we really didn't think the whole thing through. We really didn't go from start to finish. And that was a saving grace. If we had really thought about it, we never would have done it. And this was just a, what the heck? And we actually were taking the train home. And when we got to the train station, and it's about, and please laugh, it's a 10-hour train ride. It's a fun train ride, but it should be about a 4-hour train ride. It's not Europe. When we got on the train, Ansel said, oh, and by the way, Qt is there's an open source version. So the idea was, let's take what Qt has and make it right. And as we got on the train, he said, I cloned the project. And we both fell silent, and we got on the train. And we talked about, I guess we're going to do this. And I think one of the biggest starting places is we knew exactly what to do. We had to redo the build files. We had to get it to build. And then there was one thing we had to change first. We could do anything we want, but we had to do the build, get it building, and do one thing. And we did it backwards. We decided to build all 12 libraries and then fix the one thing, because Ansel said it would take 3 weeks to build.
At this point, we were using Auto Tools, which is a build system that's not that common anymore, and we've stopped using it, in fact, as has most of the community. We've moved to CMake. But I had used Auto Tools a lot, so I was a little more of the expert on that side of it. Yeah, I said it would take 3 weeks. I really did. I really honestly thought it would. 5 months later, we had a project built.
Yeah. Now, I say that we made an error because we did. All we had to build was the first library. We didn't need to build all 12. So that was a mistake. But we weren't actually thinking about stopping. We were going to need all 12 eventually. So we spent the 5 months, and then it took 3 months to get a prototype to get Hello Copper Spice. And it was so exciting. I was actually full-time on the project. Ansel still had he had like a real job. I was consulting. And I remember the day that we were like, okay, just 5 more minutes. And it actually came up with Hello Copper Spice on the screen. And we were both like, okay, now what? Wait, it's working. Wait. It took us like 10 minutes to realize it was actually saying Hello Copper Spice as like Hello World. And that took 8 months for proof of concept.
But how did you come to the point where you had the freedom to just start a software project like that? So is it just because you're living in Silicon Valley that you can just say, oh, we're doing that and somebody's going to give us money for that? Probably not. But
No.
what is your training? What enables you to actually start projects like that you're passionate about, and what path did you take that led to the situation where you're not dependent on someone else in order to do what you think is necessary in order to have in order to make what you think you should be doing?
Some of this is going to, just for those that know marketing, a lot of this is counterintuitive. One of the philosophies you had come up with was it has to work out of the box. You should be able to use this and it should work. Maybe you have to learn stuff, but it should work. So we had goals. We actually named the project and bought the website 2 days after the clone. And it sat parked for about a year. But I started documentation that week. So some of the stuff that we did that was absolutely right, buying the website, $15. It wasn't, it wasn't a big deal, but we locked in the name. And we started documentation. We started an overview doc. And the reason why is we needed to document the build process, what we were doing. And we made a rule that every time we built, we would follow our directions. I would routinely, he'd come home from work and it was like, oh, you've rewritten the docs again today. Yeah, because it didn't work. So for the first year and a half, it was only using our own documentation.
Another side of, I think, what you're asking is Copper Spice is fundamentally an engineering first project.
Yeah.
That's what we do. That's how we work. And I think that's informed, to follow up on your question about what led us to this point. I think that's informed by the training that both of us got at our respective colleges. It turns out we both went to the 2 different campuses of one particular university here in California that really emphasizes a hands-on curriculum. And also is informed by the example of people that we really admire, like Elon Musk is a lot of things.
A lot of things, yes.
But one thing he is very clearly is somebody who identifies the hard problems and solves those first.
Yeah.
And deals with the rest later. Because those can be solved once you've figured out that you have something that works. So that's always been our take on it, is just find the hard problems and solve them and know that that will have value.
Did you knew that when you came out of college right away, or did you know that in college already, or was there a special professor that came to you on your first day of college and said, "Hey guys, listen, you just need to fix the hard problems first, and then everything's going to be all right"? Or how did you did you come to that conclusion?
What is interesting is Ansel and I have known each other about 15 years now. And in a very early conversation we had, both of us, and this may sound a little bizarre, both of us had always had a vision that we would work on open source software, that eventually at some point, and so independently, we had like, we're both going to end up in open source. One of the other counterintuitive things is we did Copper Spice because we felt it was needed. And yes, you do need to pay the bills. But one of our things we don't say that much out loud is we don't do it for personal gain. Our work on Copper Spice as a library, but we do more than that. We have a video, we have a YouTube channel that we teach C++. We do other aspects. We run local, we're part of the local ACCU users group here in the Bay Area. So it's about giving back. So really the whole idea is our intent was to produce something for the community, for people. And the belief that people would find it of value and pay us along the way. And they do.
But that wasn't the point where you started your careers, was it?
No.
You didn't start your careers in 2012. So
yeah, no.
my question would be more, so if there for most of the participants are actually when I'm looking at the list of participants between 20 and 28 are the
Just
most
like
of
us.
them.
Yeah, just like us.
And so most of them are in college right now or university, and some of them are thinking about starting a company. Did you two start a company right away from college? What did you do after college? Or what was your major?
Well, okay. First of all, my major was computer science.
And mine is electrical engineering. So I also have a little bit of an emphasis. I started my master's, did not finish it in computer science, but yeah, I'm the real engineer. You are not. Yeah, it's just a funny joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not an engineer.
Yeah.
There's no engineering in my degree.
Yeah. So yeah, my degree is in hardware. But after about 2 years of working in hardware, I realized it was not what I wanted. So I did actually switch to software. And I started working for companies and writing software and sort of self-taught. But with a hardware background, it's a good route to go. I mean, if you are pursuing a degree in software, getting a degree in hardware is fantastic because you actually learn how the hardware works. Software makes a lot more sense. And then
At least taking some classes in hardware.
Classes. Yeah, in understanding.
But you didn't start a company right after college.
I actually started a software consulting company about 6 years because I realized I did not like working for somebody. So yeah, I did. And I did consulting, after about 6 years of college. And I wrote turnkey applications. So I found some languages I like to use that was not C++ at the time. And I found clients and through user groups. And so yeah, at any one time I had 5 to 7 different clients that I was writing an application just for that company. And then developing a repertoire. And the truth is, once you get 1 or 2 contracts, word of mouth really does work. And then you build up the repertoire. But the really big thing is staying active in local user groups or writing blogs, now having a YouTube channel so people see you and stuff. So yeah, I did have a consulting company. So when we decided to do Copper Spice, I was able to do that part-time to make income. Again, pay the bills is really handy. Keeps the electricity on. And you went straight out to the real world.
Yeah, I had a full-time job straight out of college.
What did you do?
So I worked for a couple of different companies. My first job out of college was working for a defense contractor doing some embedded systems. And I decided I really didn't like that work. I didn't like I didn't like the 18-month QA cycle. I actually left the company before the first project I worked on was released to the customer.
And you couldn't
that
get a
was kind of-
clearance.
Yeah, I also couldn't get my clearance process due to a bunch of bureaucratic messes with government. Government is always bureaucratic and messy.
So he couldn't actually look at the code he just wrote.
Not only that,
Yes.
the part that was really frustrating was I couldn't look at the test cases.
Oh, the test cases, that's right.
And I also couldn't get the debugging output.
Because you didn't have the
So I
right
would
plan.
get the printout back and half of it would be blacked out.
Yes,
It was super frustrating. I was like,
Yes.
you know what? This is not worth it.
yes.
It's like, can you tell me, how much memory it used before it crashed? No.
No. Yeah.
That information is classified.
But
So-
it did pass test 2 and 4.
Yes.
Okay.
So I decided that wasn't really the way to go.
Yeah.
And I ended up working for a company here in the Bay Area locally for about
6 years, 6 or 7 years.
6 or 7 years. A content delivery network, delivering live streaming video. We also did static, pre-recorded video as well, but I didn't work on that as much. So I wrote a system that broadcast live streaming video all over the world for hundreds of thousands of people at a time.
So you mentioned
And
a lot of-
when was that? In years? When did you work on that streaming system?
That would have been.
well, you
I'm
left
thinking-
there in 2017.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, about
2010 to
2010-ish to 2017.
So word of advice to those college students. I remember when Ansel said, this is the company I want to work for. And there's a job opening, but I'm not qualified. And I said, what makes you say that? And he said, well, the resume says you need, or the job requirement, you need 10 years of experience,
It was for a senior position.
a senior position. And I said, but you know the work. And it's like, yes. And I said, interview. And it was one of the most fun interviews you've ever been on.
It was. It turned out that I did fairly well on the interview. It's really good to hone your skills before an interview, just because that's always a good idea. And it turned out I actually found a bug in the test questions that the interviewer did not know was there.
Yeah.
And I later found out that that gentleman ended up being my boss for a while. And I later found out that his response after leaving the office that I was interviewing in, he went to his boss's office and said, I don't care what his resume says, throw it out and hire him.
Yeah.
So it's important to know what you know and do it well. Do something well
Yeah.
and figure out a way to make that relevant.
Yeah.
You're not going to do everything well. Nobody does. But know what you're good at and do that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. You were in over your head for a while, but so was everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's life.
But one of the things that I found was fascinating is one day Ansel mentioned there's a system at work that's going to crash. It's going to overload and it's just going to crash. And I said, how long? And he said, probably next week. And I said, what are you going to do? And he says, I don't know. And we had plans that weekend, and it was a 3-day weekend. It was a holiday weekend. And I said, how long would it take to fix it? And he said, 3 months. And I said, well, could you do it in 3 days? Because I'm ambitious. And I'm not a trained manager, but I understand management. And so I said, I'll manage the project. And it's Friday night. We finished dinner. Let's get to work. And break the task into 7 pieces. I don't know why I picked that. And do one. He said, which one? I said, I don't care. And we spent the weekend. And I remember at one point, he was sitting in the office, which is across this room. And he said, I'm screwed. I'm stuck. I can't. And I'm like, why? And he goes, piece 4 will never work. And I'm like, fake it. Just hard coded. And it was some HTTP request that was painful.
Pro tip. All DNS is a lie.
Yes. So he said, fine, I'll fake it. And I said, and next time, don't sit there for half an hour. And because I'm managing this project, and I was kind of a mean person, but it was fun. We actually had a lot of fun. Monday morning,
I was working from home.
Yeah.
I typically worked from home on Mondays. And so I told my boss,
or
hey,
was it Tuesday? Because it was a
Eh,
3-day
no,
weekend. It was
yeah.
Tuesday. Yeah.
and I told my boss, hey, can you go to this page and take a look at it? Just sent him a message. And he said, what am I looking at? And I said, well, that's the new system. That's the completely rebuilt live streaming system running in the lab. And he said, that's a lot faster than the old one. What did you do?
How much faster? It was.
I improved the performance of the system by 4.5 orders of magnitude. It's
Yeah.
not every day you get a win like that.
Yeah.
Um,
In 3 days.
but it pretty much saved the project,
Yeah.
which was very valuable. So that's, I guess, another takeaway is don't be afraid to assume that you can do something you don't think you can when it's really important. And when it's not when it's really important, it's when it matters to you.
Yeah, when it matters to you.
And if it doesn't matter to you, you're not doing the right thing.
The funny part is that piece that you faked
Never got fixed.
never got fixed. Not
Sat there in the code for 7 years.
7
as far
years.
as I know, it was still that way when I
yeah,
left.
never got fixed. It
It
was
wasn't
hard-coded.
necessary.
It wasn't. Yeah.
So that's the other piece. If it's not necessary, don't do it up front.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Because chances are when you find out that you needed it, you'll have a better idea of how to do it than you do now
Yeah.
when you're not sure if you need it.
It's funny. I mean, just telling this story again is so exciting because it was an impossible task to do it in 3 days.
Mhm.
But if you
And
decide,
it wasn't complete. You know,
Yeah.
it was a prototype at that point,
Yeah,
but
it
it was enough to build on.
well, and for any C++ people, after that particular project, you went into your boss's office and removed the star key because he was never allowed to use a pointer again. Yeah. So he just took off the actual key key. Just took off the key off the keyboard.
Sorry, sir, you are not qualified.
Can't use pointers again. He did not understand. So
But Ansel, then this company you worked for at that time,
yes.
yeah, it seems like you were pretty happy there, or at least this this story sounds quite happy. When did you left the company, or how did you leave the company? How did the company end up?
That's a very well asked
That's a
question.
good question.
and very perceptive. It was a wonderful company to work for a long time. And then it got bought by a large multinational corporation and became a small component of a very, very large system that was extremely complicated and messy. And it became completely impossible to make any effective change or have any meaningful impact or even get the things I needed to do my work,
Mhm.
applied to a project. And so I decided this isn't a good place to be anymore. I'm not improving anything. I actually stayed, in hindsight, quite a bit longer than I probably should have because I really liked my coworkers.
Mhm.
And so the day-to-day experience was pretty good, but the actual projects I was working on were just completely fruitless.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
in the long run, I decided I'm wasting my time here.
So would you? So you're coming from an area where startups and selling startups, exiting or whatever you would call it, happens on a more regular basis than it does at our place. Would you say that was a usual exit story?
Well, that's a good question.
Was it an exit?
Um, It technically wasn't for me because I don't consider myself part of the startup crew at that company. I was probably employee number 75 or 80.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't there at the very beginning. Although it was odd. By the time I left, I was one of the most senior employees there. There was a lot of turnover after the acquisition.
Mhm.
So that is not an uncommon story at all. Because the people who started the company, the initial crew, did very well in the acquisition. I am certain of that.
Yeah.
I'm sure they got very well compensated for all the work that they put in. I wasn't in that crew, so I didn't have the first 10 employees level of stock options and things like that. So it wasn't as much of a concern for me. So that's pretty common. I was actually in another startup during my college years, and that one ended up dying because the lead investor literally got hit by a bus, and he wasn't not terribly injured, but ended up in the hospital, and his children were managing his medical care and didn't know what kind of funds they would need to take care of him, and so froze the funding. And once your lead investor pulls out,
Yeah.
all of the other investors say something's wrong with this company, and they all pulled out as well, and the company died during the Series A funding round. So that's quite common too. All sorts of stuff happens at every stage along the startup process.
But I would suggest that anybody who has a chance to be in a startup, you absolutely take it.
Yeah,
Even if it doesn't work, the experience you gain, managing yourself, working on a project, take every risk you can.
Yeah.
Just because none of it will be lost. I had no idea I was picking up managerial skills when I was consulting for X number of years. But I wrote a newsletter and I managed clients, and it was just, you pick up skills well beyond just writing software or working on hardware, and you have no idea where you're going to use it. So you just kind of stash all your experience.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we do with Copper Spice that somebody mentioned is we each bring our skill set to this. And our skill set isn't the same. Ansel used to write daemons. I used to write turnkey systems, but we overlap. One of the things about working with somebody on a project, if you're going to collaborate with somebody, is you have to know your strengths and your weaknesses and let the other person shine and leave the ego at the door.
Which is not as easy as it sounds.
Yes, not as easy as it sounds.
And it doesn't sound easy.
Yeah. It doesn't.
So Barbara, you were self-employed
Yes.
at most of the time. First of all, how did that end? And even though I really hate to bring up this topic, you really do know that I hate to bring up this topic, but since it fits in our today's political narrative, did you ever feel so special because you were a woman in software or engineering?
Let me reword the question and ask any diversity question you want. Just go for it, because I can either put everybody in tears or tell funny stories. I have a degree in electrical engineering. I have been through being tossed out of class, insulted, criticized. My graduating class was 200 people with 6 women. I have seen it all. And yeah, as a woman, you do have to be just a little bit better. And you can't take half of it personally. But the truth is, and this is going to sound kooky, and maybe it's not the question you ask, men may not be discriminated against, but they go through the same exact fears as a woman. Ansel and I were on a diversity panel at a local college 5 or 6 years ago. And was it the man? No, this woman stood up, and she happened to be Indian descent. And she stood up and she looked directly at Ansel. The whole panel could have gone away. They just talked to us. It was funny. And she said, I'm really scared in most of my classes.
And the exact question she asked was, I'm often intimidated because I look around the class and you know who was doing well in the class. And she said, I know the top of the class is always a man. And for whatever reason, probably because I'm a bit of a smartass, I didn't think very long about my answer. And I said, yeah. And look around the room again. And the dumbest person in the room is also a man. You're somewhere in the middle, just like most of the rest of us.
Yeah.
I know what those classes look like. I've been in those rooms. It's almost all men. This is just what it is.
And this was a group of STEM people, chemistry, physics, math. These were more beginning students in college, but these were all people that were trying to pursue either a physics degree, a chemistry degree, computer science, so something technical. And they were struggling. But then there was the man who stood up and again asked us. And he's like, what the hell are you going to do looking for a job when there's so many women looking for the job and I now have to compete with women? Yeah.
And that's when I realized that people don't understand what engineering is.
Yeah.
And there's a great series of blog posts that got turned into a book by this guy named Joel. Joel on Software is the name of the blog. And he in one of his posts, he mentions the idea that, if you go to look for a job at a fast food restaurant, they have N job openings where that might be 0 or it might be 4. And once those job openings are filled, you're done. And then nobody else need apply. I have never, ever, ever been at a software company that didn't have more work than people to do it.
Yeah.
So if you're qualified and you show up, even if there isn't a job opening, somehow we'll figure it out because we can't get it done. And yes, of course we want your help. So
we basically told that gentleman, it's like, and his point was, and we've looked at statistics and these numbers are a couple years old, but we're in the Silicon Valley where you do have Google and Facebook and Box and these larger companies. The statistics right now are between 8 and 10% of engineering is female. If you look in human resources and other marketing type areas, it's about 50% is female, maybe 45. These numbers could be a little bit off today, but they're probably worse. But his point is, what happens when engineering isn't 8%, and now I have to compete with a woman, and it's 30 or 40? And I'm like, I guess you'll have to be a better engineer, and you'll have to actually know your stuff. And he wasn't comfortable with that. Now, on the flip side,
do people want to hear advice because looking at that from a very German perspective,
yes.
Usually people don't want to have advice. Do you think that what do you think makes Silicon Valley different to what you have experienced? I mean, you have been to Bochum a
Yes.
couple of times. What would you say is the biggest difference in the engineers you've met here and the engineers you have met at your place? Is there a difference?
No, just your accent. Actually,
that's it, really.
There's an accent. Maybe you're using words missing a plural or something, but that's English, and it's still early. Who cares? Oh, that's not completely true. We've learned, well, that's business on how to communicate.
Mhm.
There's a difference if you're communicating, and it's very different. Very different. Like if we're dealing with somebody who's from India versus somebody who's from Europe, and we wouldn't separate England, Germany, Holland, the whole thing in there, versus the United States. Maybe there is the fact that people in Europe are a little more direct.
Mhm. But that's really
Yeah.
in terms of the one thing that I do see a little bit, although it's really a very small difference,
Mhm.
is I tend to see that in Europe, risk is not quite celebrated as much as it is here.
Mm.
There's another great series of blogs by Paul Graham, who's a venture capitalist and entrepreneur who anybody who's interested in starting a startup should read pretty much everything he's written. It's really useful. And he talks about the idea that when he's making hiring decisions, he will place somebody who doesn't have a college degree, but started a startup
Yeah.
well above somebody who just graduated college, because they know you've learned about risk, you've learned about, management to some degree, even just managing yourself if you're in a one-person startup. So I think there's a little bit more of that here than I see elsewhere in the world. I think it's even specific to California to some degree, because I even see that in the other startup hub in the US, which is the Boston area, it's still not even that way, which is why you tend to see like the really crazy risky startups in California,
Mhm.
and the ones who are entering more regulated industries like biotech and pharmaceuticals and stuff, where you have to have a little more rigidity even at the very beginning, those tend to be more Boston focused.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's true, but that's just what I've observed.
Do you think that's a question of the weather?
No, I think it's just what grew out of it. One of the
I
things
think it's culture.
I think it's culture. One of the things that Ansel and I were chatting about earlier tonight, when this opportunity to chat with people had come up, we were just thinking about what it meant to be in Silicon Valley. And what was fascinating for us is there is absolutely no way Copper Spice, because we've been doing this for 8 years, would be where it's at if we hadn't have started in Silicon Valley, because we had access to people. It isn't the internet. It isn't the chairs. It isn't. Being near the ocean.
Our infrastructure here is terrible.
It's terrible.
Don't move here for bandwidth.
Yeah.
Don't move here for good roads.
If you're
it's awful.
I mean, there are companies near San Jose, which is sort of Silicon Valley. There's an airport down there. It's not the main airport. They can't even get high-speed internet. I mean, it is just terrible. There's other areas that are great. What makes this area good, and this question is going to go this thing is going to go weird, is that there are ways to meet people. If you're willing to actually leave your house pre-pandemic, pre-March of this year, you could go to local meetings. We were talking about this. Our local ACCU group, our C++ group, we have about 5,000 members. We were speaking in Munich last year. And in any Munich, and I'm just comparing Munich to the San Francisco area, they can easily get 200-300 people. They will get room capacity there. In Poland, we were doing a talk, and thousands of people show up. Where we hold our meetings at well-known companies, at Mercedes, at Synopsys, at Symantec, out of 5,000 members, and it's a free thing, we're lucky to have 100 people.
Now, bear in mind, there are probably 500 people in that building using C++.
Yeah. Who don't
They could
show
have
up.
just stayed late for work
Yeah.
and gone to the meeting and not even had to drive anywhere.
Yeah. They don't show up. But it is by going to these meetings, by going to LLVM meetings, by meeting these people, having dinner, just literally, we would go to LLVM meetings just as green as could be, and we had a problem. And we would go and they would laugh at us. And then the next meeting they would answer us, and then it's so we were going to like 2 or 3 or 4 meetings a month, bugging people. We have this problem. How do we solve it? The problem is in 2020, this doesn't work.
And how it usually worked before that was that there was a minimally technical talk, and there were a lot of people from the municipal economic development department of the city or somewhat, and you basically talked about what is your lean startup method, or wasn't it like that?
No.
So there's no government agency in the Bay Area has ever really had to explicitly say, we'd like to make startups happen here.
It doesn't work like that.
That's not a thing. That's not a thing.
Government doesn't get involved.
Now, there is a hidden side to this, which a lot of people don't know. Being a Bay Area native, I've studied some of this. Part of the startup culture also comes from the fact that technically the Manhattan Project was run out of UC Berkeley, which is one of our major universities here. And after the war, a lot of those scientists moved to Berkeley because they liked the people they were working with and moved there. So there's a whole military research side that also started a lot of the startups. But fundamentally, it's just a matter of, to have startups, you have to have people with good ideas, people who can implement good ideas, and people with money to fund the other two in one place, able to meet each other. And that just sort of happened naturally in this area. It's a nice place to live. The weather is good. So once people earn a lot of money because they started a startup that did really well, they tend to stay here and fund the next generation of startups. They don't move somewhere nice to retire.
Yeah, they stay.
So there's that. But
yeah, it really does come down to the fact that we needed this group. If you were to go in the United States, we have one C++ conference, and there's 1,000 people, and you're going to meet people, but you're not going to get close to anybody until you know them. At these particular meetings that I'm talking about, and it just drives us crazy that 5,000 people or 500 people don't show up to our local meetings. But if you go to an LLVM meeting and you can interface with local people, 50, 60 people, and you can have a beer or a sandwich with them, you can get closer. So it's that connection. So that's part of what we're not falling apart, but we're craving so much. With this pandemic, it's been horrible that we don't get the same interaction online. But since Ansel and I already have the connections, we can email them. So we have emails, we have ways that we can go online and chat with the team we've already built. So if you're trying to do a startup today, you may need to wait 6 months. You may need to wait a little bit. But I do want to plug your conference and you guys lucked out with EMBO. When we logged on in March, crazy times, we don't care. We logged on and we watched your whole conference live. And what made it work was half of the people were live in the room. Since then, we have done a couple of using, I think, Remo software just online. They're just speakers. It's okay. However, we had the most fabulous experience in September. We were speakers at CPPCon here. It was a conference, who cares? But we sat at a table. Now, unfortunately, Remo software only allows 8 people at a table. We sat down for about 8 or 10 hours. We just sat down, got our wine. We started breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And people came and left. And it was that 10 hours. During that time, a very well-known woman who is part of the C++ Standards Committee, who actually lives an hour away from us, sat at the table. For those of you interested, Lisa Lippincott, fabulous speaker, fabulous woman. We talked to her for hours. What was neat was we got a tour of her apartment, her Legos, idols, and and she was showing us stuff, but we talked shop through breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Yes, we'd been speakers like the morning, the day before. Nobody cared. There was an impromptu somebody that we know who lives in Sweden. He did an impromptu
Lightning talk.
About horrible C++ books. This just went on. I mean, there was a woman for Israel that came on. That is what was fantastic. It was that connection. And I'm stunned that after living an hour away from Lisa, we've never met her for lunch. And as soon as we can, it's like, Lisa, we're coming to meet you for lunch. And he goes, sure, you're going to have to come over here. It's easier. And I'm like, I know where I want to go for lunch. And I told her, and she goes, I live across the street from that restaurant. And she's like, it's like, but I want to take you somewhere else. Now I have a connection with somebody. So now I have a hard connection with somebody in my industry. And by the way, she's brilliant. And now I have somebody I can email or I can set up lunch with. And that's what you need if you're going to do a startup. That's what you need. I mean,
yeah, that's really the fundamental thing is you need connections.
You need connections.
It is people
who are smarter than you.
Yeah. Who are smarter than you on at least one axis. I mean, they're smarter than you in some direction.
In some axis.
People are what makes it. There's really, I mean, we were fortunate in starting Copper Spice, and that's one other tip that I would give people is find a place, a way you can do your idea. Hopefully it's software or something like that. That's not that capital intensive.
Yeah.
So you can experiment easily and not have to sink a lot of money into a prototype or things like that. I love being in software. It's awesome. I need a computer anyway, just for general.
Wait a minute. We have 12 of them.
Well, okay, there is that.
Yeah. we get notices from our electric company all the time of, really, could you cut back? And I'm like, no.
I mean, my hat's off to SpaceX and spending tens of millions of dollars before your first prototype.
Yeah.
But that's a lot harder road to do, and you need a lot more people. Software is a wonderful place to be where you can really get together a small team of people and just try it. Just do it. It doesn't take a crazy amount of, it doesn't take approval. It doesn't take a lot.
We don't need anybody's approval.
Yeah.
We actually had I did. You were couldn't hear, we were at a bar. A year ago, we had a conversation with somebody in the industry who said, I just want to know who you guys are. And I understand Copper Spice. You wrote this library. You took Qt. You made it actually work. And you made it a real C++ library. He goes, but I want to know who you are. And after talking to us for a little while, he goes, I finally figured it out. You are two people with one brain. And you're solving problems that are bigger than one person can solve. And he says, I can't wait to see what you guys are going to solve next. He goes, I don't care what it is. Just keep solving problems. Mm-hmm. And when we get stuck, we look at each other and go, I have nothing. What do you have? I got nothing. Yeah. But then we realize we just have to find a spark. And we just have to remember that no problem that we have ever solved, and we've solved some nasty ones, neither one of us knew the whole picture. Most of the problems that we solve sound like this. I, Barbara, have the dumbest idea in the world. What if we do this really dumb thing?
And then I say, that's the stupidest thing I've ever, wait a second. But how about that?
And then let's do that. And that is the canonical conversation that happens in our office. And this doesn't really matter if you're doing software or sales. Think outside the box.
So, first of all, you said something really, really special to me because usually people tell me that I only appear to have half a brain, so that if I meet someone else, then I would probably have. Well, other thing is, I don't want to make you jealous or something, but Tabea and I, we already had lunch with Lisa 2 years
Oh,
ago on her way.
oh my God. Oh,
um, but the thing, so what you're basically saying is, it's not either one of you or one person that is responsible for a project in order to it being successful, but you need always someone else.
yeah.
And the situation I'm seeing in Germany is that there are so many institutions that want to that are hosting events, doing stuff, so you can meet new people. And on a usual week, I would say I'm meeting 50 to 100 new people.
Wow.
But most of them are actually, well, I don't know if most of them.
Salesman like me, I guess. So it's not.
Yeah. How do you how do you know, or how do you find out who to work with and who not to work with? So what is it? I would assume that there is some kind of cultural process in Silicon Valley that serves the purpose of getting people further away that you don't want to work with, and getting people closer that you want to work with. How does that work?
Well, the first thing is based on real estate prices, the people who don't want to work in tech have already self-selected out of the area.
Yeah.
So
But
that's one thing.
But that's not completely true, because the truth is we actually work with, there's a bunch of people. Copper Spice is actually a team, and a lot of our team is actually in Europe. So we have people in the US and in Europe and stuff, and all over. So the truth is anybody can contribute. We are an open source project. And so that is a pro
Yeah.
tip we should say. If you're a C++ developer and you want experience, or you want a nice looking resume, join an existing open source project, because you don't have to do the whole thing. And if you're looking for a project, please contact us, www.copperspice.com. Please contact us. We actually like teaching, so we don't actually reject anybody. Who is it? Who am I thinking? Is it Linus who said, I will take every,
Yeah,
I think
the general rule of thumb, and I've monitored the Linux kernel development process for years. I'm interested in it. And Linus never rejects somebody's submission. He always says, I would accept this if you X. So, because that's much more useful.
Yeah.
Everybody has some good idea. I've never talked to anybody who didn't have an idea that was worth hearing.
Just not implemented.
May not be there.
Yeah, may not be there.
As far as choosing who you want to work with, that is a tricky one. Part of that just comes with experience, because after having worked with enough people, you learn what traits work well with you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like there are people that are good at their thing and people that are bad. It's, does this team work together?
I also think we've developed a list of questions. And this is more about who hires us on contract basis. I mean, we were working on a contract at one point, and the company was not in our time zone, but they demanded not just that we were in their time zone, that we were in all time zones, that we answer the phone within 30 minutes of any time they called. And they had a habit of wanting to call us at midnight, 3 a.m. And that works once or twice. That doesn't work on a daily basis. And we tried to explain, we need to set some boundaries. And we were told, no, we set the boundaries. And it's like, yes, we know that it's your money and stuff, but eventually we just had to let go of the contract because
it was a personality
it was
conflict
a personality
between companies.
Yeah, between our company and their company. They didn't want to respect. They didn't care if it was a Tuesday. They said, okay, if you're in the hospital, and this was long before COVID, if you're in the hospital, okay, and you're bleeding to death, don't answer the phone. But other than that, sleep with your phone right next to you and talk to us all the time. And we tried to explain Silicon Valley doesn't work that way because we thought we'd explain it and it didn't work. And it was a personality thing. And so we let go of the contract. And we actually weren't upset because it isn't worth a contract. Again, money's great, but not if you're selling your soul. Not if you're giving up your freedom.
You will be so much more productive and add so much more value and be so much more lucrative in the long run if you're doing something you actually like and want. So I guess another tip would be find something that you would do even if you didn't get paid for it. Do that and find people who would also do that.
Yeah. And then people will pay you.
And never say, oh, this thing is too stupid. Nobody will ever pay me for this. Because that's a losing bet. I would have bet that nobody would ever pay to watch other people play games. But that's a multi-billion-dollar industry now. So
video games,
anything either of us or anybody else has to say about that's a stupid idea.
Yeah,
nobody would care. Just try it.
I think sometimes we get to a point where, like I said, we've had this YouTube channel, and I'm bringing it up because we started doing these C++ videos because we had trouble with a video recording at a conference, and we wanted to record it. So we went out and bought this great camera that we're using today and said, we'll do these videos. And we set it up to record that one video. And the truth is we were trying to actually teach C++ looking at the camera. And it took us 7 or 8 hours to get 4 minutes because we couldn't stop laughing. We had the maturity of about an 8-year-old. There was a camera on. I could make funny faces. So we turned the camera off, put it in the box, and decided to just do voiceover on the slides. We did that one. We've now released 56 videos. We think that's a success. Some do better. And if you want to see any of them, they're at YouTube/CopperSpice. We'll give ourselves that plug. If you're into C++, if you're just interested in what it might look like, these are 10 or 15-minute videos. Sure, we would love them to have gazillions of people watching. But what we know is we're changing somebody's life because we get I think one of the best comments we got was from somebody who said,
his comment was, I watched this video and I never knew what any of these things meant. Now I know what to Google for so I can learn the things I need to know.
Yeah.
I was like, actually, that's really cool because now you can get started.
So, and we get comments from people who send us email of saying, I don't even speak English. And I could actually understand what you were saying a bit slower, but he had fun with it. So our intention with these videos is we just kind of made up a story that somebody out there has watched one of our videos and is now writing the most magnificent software in the world. And we got to help teach them. So we don't even know who this person is, but somewhere somebody's writing software, having learned from what we did.
I think to wrap up some of the things you said in the first half was companies maybe don't do business with companies, but it's always personalities doing business with other personalities.
Yeah.
I think that's one takeaway. But so over the last couple of minutes, you were talking a lot about that you love teaching. You were talking a lot of value or adding value or creating value. But on the other hand, you were talking about paying the bills. And I can go to the website. I can download your project. I can just take it, put it into my piece of software, sell my software, and you will probably never know that I made a fortune with your technology. So
How do we make money?
from a very German point of view,
Yes.
with open source software, nobody could ever make money. How is that working out for you?
Quite well.
And I would say it's working out quite well for Red Hat, IBM.
VM. Yeah.
There's many others I could name.
Yeah.
Novell.
Novell. Yeah.
There's a lot of people who make open source software a core piece of their business model. Facebook, Google, Yahoo. I could go on. It's each product is unique. We find that the model that fits our philosophical position is support.
Yeah.
So if you write your awesome software based on our product, that's wonderful. That's great. If you find a problem, which we all know no software is perfect.
Mhm.
If you find a problem and you would like to fix it yourself, that's great. If you would like to fix it yourself and send us the patch, that's awesome. If you would like us to fix it, that's awesome. If you need it fixed tomorrow,
That will
now
cost
you're changing our
you-
priorities.
yeah.
And now we need a more business relationship because you're impacting other people who are
Yeah.
also on our roadmap
Mhm.
of things we've committed to accomplish this thing. If you have your code and you say, I've written this code, but it doesn't really work the way I want it to, could you look at this and give me some suggestions of how to do this better in your system? We'd be happy to.
Mhm.
That's going to take time out of our schedule.
Mhm.
So we'll have to arrange that.
But from what you told us so far, that you didn't think of that business model in the first place when you got on the train and you
Yeah, oh, yeah.
cloned the Qt project and you tried building it. Was your first thought, oh, I've got the perfect business case and I'm going to sell so much of support? Or uh, when was the moment when you thought, oh, we could sell that?
Well, one of the things that happened, and again, if Qt hadn't have done, Qt has been working on this particular library for years. They did a great job, but they stopped short. If they had just taken it all the way, we would never have done Copper Spice. But they stopped short, and we saw that we could take it from where they had it to continue. Now, they are still in business, but they're not really catering to the C++ industry. One of the things that solidified our business model was at one point when they talked about how they wanted to take care of their customers. And we looked at some of their modeling and we said, oh, no. That's not how you do it. You do it this way. You don't think inside the box. You think outside the box. You don't limit your customers. You allow your customers to implement things however they want, and you give them the tools. Qt is a framework. We're a set of libraries, and that is a huge difference. And it is a distinction we made day one. And we've had a lot of people say, I don't know the difference. It is a little bit complicated to explain the difference, but it's just with a framework, the framework tells you how to work. With a library, you say, I'm going to tell you how to work. So it's who's the driving force, and it changes the dynamics. And we knew this day one. Now, it did take us 8 months to figure out we could do this. We made that one change. And we're not limited. We have read things, we have seen things that the Qt team gets stuck. And I wish they wouldn't. They're like, well, we should change this. And then they don't. And we're like, we should change that. We could do it by dinner. So we just change things that are wrong. We do run it by our team. We do talk to other people. We ask people, is this a good idea? And there's times we have to say no to things like, yeah, we could do that, but that would take 3 months and it's not worth it.
But I think part of the answer to your question directly is yes, this was absolutely
Our
the
business.
business model from day one, partially because based on the fact that we are based on an existing open source project,
Mhm.
this was the only business model that was available
Oh, yes, that is true.
to us. I mean, that was the only source of revenue that we could attach
Yeah.
to this code base. But also, it just felt like the right thing
Mhm.
because so many companies want vendor lock-in. They want to extract as much revenue from their customers as possible. And I have seen time and again companies get mortally wounded by this, by having a great vendor lock-in and making a lot of money off a lot of deep-pocketed customers, but underestimating how much their customers really dislike them and are looking for an opportunity to go somewhere else.
Mhm.
And so part of this is, I guess I could sort of say it's an agile business model
Ugh.
because it
I hate
means
that
we
word.
have to be responsive to
Yes.
our customers.
Yeah.
Because the only thing we are receiving revenue for is their continued faith in what we are doing and that we are adding value to their product. And I think it can be nerve-wracking sometimes, but it makes you a lot more responsive to what your customers want, as opposed to just, I have a product, it has no natural competitors, it has no natural predators. How much money can I make before a dinosaur killer asteroid comes along and wipes out the Earth and we all die?
So it's a little bit to kind of take it out of software for the non-software people.
Sure.
It's kind of like how Amazon presents their same products in the exact same marketplace as other people, right? Like
Mhm.
there's Amazon brands on Amazon. There's also small companies that just sell through the Amazon marketplace, and that keeps them honest, right? Like if you are in a position where somebody can take away your business at any time, essentially, and you survive by virtue of being the best, well, you're probably going to stay the best, right?
We're hoping that one, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is part of the business model. Maybe there is a bit of faith in it, but we have seen, we get a lot of emails of people saying, I've been using the product for 6 months and I ran into this. And we're going, how come we didn't know you were a user? We really can't track all the users. But when people need help, that's when they contact us. If you do check out the website, you can see that we have a tiered support system. And we put a tiered on there because some people, they just want a little support. But that support is how much we're going to answer your bug reports. And you're right, you don't have to pay for it. And then that motivates people. Well, why don't I help them out? Why don't I pay something? I mean, we do get companies saying, I don't want to be locked in. I don't want to sign a contract, but I want to know you're there. And I want to know you're going to fix my bugs. And we're not completely crazy. We know software has bugs and new features.
And I think another part of it is, specifically if you're in software, but think about this in other genres as well, is I know for a fact all software, no matter what it does, is in the process of becoming a commodity. 5-10 years ago, if you wanted to design your own, chips, you wanted to do custom ASIC design, the software to do that cost tens of thousands of dollars per seat, easily. Now there are quite good open source toolkits to do exactly the same thing. Now, the closed source, proprietary systems do still exist, but over time, their days are numbered. And they're going to have to adapt to the fact that there is a growing body of open source software out there that for many tasks is good enough. And how long can you survive on your shrinking base of very high-end customers until you realize that there's actually a very broad base of, for things like this, hobbyists, small companies who would love to use your software, but it's prohibitive at that price point. It's really a much more democratic environment in software than it was even 5 years ago in so many marketplaces. And you can either recognize that fact or you can try to hold it off as long as possible. And they're both strategies. And in my opinion, one of them has a future and the other doesn't. I mean, it's really just the timeline is the question.
So looking at the clock, and since we're continuing with our program at 5 to 9, and if you could give one special piece of advice to engineers wanting to start a company or wanting to start a project, doesn't have to be a company, does it? What would it be you would tell them if you were just, I don't know, this situation, you're sitting on the train, you just cloned the repo, but the window is rolled down, and one of these young engineers is running next to the train and says, Barbara, Ansel, please tell me what I have to do. And you would have to shout out of a train in just that last minute or so.
Give him an Oregon beer. They'll be good.
Give him an Oregon beer. Well, one of the things that was told to me about 600 years ago, I'm actually quite old. Okay, quite 600 years ago. I was writing some software, and somebody well-known in the industry was looking over my shoulder, and he said, why aren't you programming like you mean it? And I said, what do you mean? And he goes, and it isn't that you're better than that. That isn't what he meant. And he goes, I know what language you're using here, and I know what languages you know. Always program like you mean it. Always program to be effective. And it isn't to, effective is not the word of to be right. But this is the thing in C++. We should always write correct code. That isn't necessarily a thing that's said in every computer language, but we should. So even if you're a marketing person, even if you're a salesperson, be effective and do it like you mean it. And that's only going to happen if you love what you're doing. You're not going to love everything you do. You are not going to love the days you need to do billing or clean up that documentation or work on a section of the code that just you hate. But overall, it does need to be something you love. And then you can be effective. And we tell that to each other quite a bit. Are we being effective? And I don't know if that word completely translates to other languages, but it does to us. Chris, we make up a lot of words.
We do.
Yeah.
And I think my take on it would be, there will be parts that are really hard. It's just inevitable.
Yeah.
There will be parts that are really hard. When you're there, you know you're doing the right thing because that's 1,000 competitors who just gave up.
Yeah.
The more hard things you have to go through along the way to the thing you want to do, the more unique it is, the more of value it is.
Yeah.
If it's easy, don't bother. Somebody else will do it. Seriously. Yeah. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time and your insights in running a company, running a project. If you would like, I would love you. I know your German isn't the best German, but if you're interested, in about 5 minutes, Tabea is going to give a talk about her current research project, where we're I lost my words. Odin.
His German, it's almost midnight here, so his German might get better. Actually, have a little wine. Your German, you can say something. My German it's just nothing. And
But-
thank you everybody for listening to our silliness. And it's not just that it's almost midnight here. Maybe that is the other side, is this silliness and this candidness. This is actually just who we are. And because when it gets hard in the office, you need this. You need this silly side.
Mhm.
So, but and if there are women out there that are stuck or confused or discriminated or feel awful, please feel free to email me at barbara@copperspice.com or copperspice.net or copperspice.org, or talk to these lovely guys. If you are a woman and you feel, I can't do anything, but I can be compassionate and trade stories with you and listen if you feel like you got lost. So there.
Or you can just, as soon as it is possible again, hop on a plane, just go to Half Moon Bay and knock at every door and ask for the 2 C++ programmers.
And as soon as it's possible, we'll come back to Bochum and do this. But I do want to make sure that, and not just, yeah, I guess I am discriminating about the men, but it's sometimes women feel like they got discriminated and they were alone. You're not alone. And I could raise the hair on your back of your neck. It doesn't mean anything because it's just an experience. That's all it really is. And as women, we're here to educate the other men and the other women. I've had women discriminate against me just as much. So don't think it's just men against women. If there's women listening, they're probably all going, yep, I've had a woman who was rude to me. It happens. But we'll get through this.
Thanks so
Thank you.
much for your time. I think we're going to stay in the hangout for a little bit longer, but our regisseur, I don't know if is that the correct term in English.
Sure.
The director is going to cut us away in just a couple of seconds. So
Okay.
thanks once more,
So much.
and yeah, all
We
the
miss
best.
you guys.
Oh, we miss you too.
Oh.
So to everybody looking in the stream right now, goodbye and have fun with Mario and Tabea talking about the 25 Square research project. So goodbye.